Hi everyone. Today we're going to talk about compositions and how to create better compositions. When it comes to designing things, it's really important to plan ahead. Some people, especially artists, like to think, oh, I'm just going to wing it. I'm going to follow my impression. I'm going to react to what I see. Certainly, I understand that as an artist and the tendency to want to be able to just do things as you go, but it is important to plan ahead. And it's kind of the difference between maybe a designer and an artist is, do you like to plan ahead? Do you like to experience it in the moment? What do you like to do? For me, as an OCD designer, I like to think ahead. So the compositional tools available to us are very helpful in making designs that are stronger and more visually pleasing. So what you see on the screen is a rule of thirds grid. There are a few different types of grids I'm going to focus on, some of the typical ones that we use most often. And probably the most basic or the most common is going to be the rule of thirds. If you're a photographer, you've heard about the rule of thirds before. It's something that helps you plan and plot where to put things of importance. If you look at it, it's a 9-square grid. It has 3 columns divided by 3 rows, and that gives you logical focal points, whether it's where lines intersect or quadrants within the frame where you might position things of importance. Now, typical composition might be to target, point and shoot, put something right dead center in the middle. More sophisticated compositions position things to the side or asymmetrically inside the frame. But let's see how the rule of thirds grid might apply to a poster composition. So I'm going to turn this one on here, and let me pull my layers up here so I can turn things on and off. Let's see what happens with the rule of thirds applied to this poster. Now in this poster you have your central subject, which is the bridge. But look at how the central pillar here in the middle is one side of the bridge. Now naturally it descends in the distance in perspective, but the main center quadrant of that rule of thirds grid is dominated by that tower, and everything else kind of radiates from that. It almost creates a pyramid. Visually speaking, it's a little bit off because of perspective, but you can see that pyramid shape. There's also a nice, pleasing, settling lower portion of the poster, which is this dark area with the title and these darker colors that kind of push that into the bottom, kind of creates a foundation for the poster. So while this artwork isn't aligned exactly to this grid, you can see visually how it kind of slides right in. I mentioned there are other grids that are useful in designing, and another one other than rule of thirds would be just a straight up grid. An evenly divided grid, in this case might be 1-inch square all the way around your composition. And if you look at this one, and let's apply it to a different poster and see how that looks. So what is useful about this type of grid in graphic design is being able to align things and make sure things line up. For example, look at this wine bottle, how it kind of lines up. The edges here visually line up with the letter E. Or maybe this wine glass, the top of the glass and the top of the bottle, or the base down here where you see the wine country, or some of these rows or the edge of the house. You can see how these things start to align in space. Now this is a subliminal thing that happens when you look at a design. When you don't have a grid visible, your artwork looks held together, like it's fitting in the right spot. It's almost like a puzzle being put together. When you reveal the grid or you apply one to it, you start to see how these things were planned. They weren't on purpose. Like look at how the top of the roof and those grapes align with each other. Now, A really talented artist or designer, they may do this instinctively and not even think about it. But those of us like me who need practice and help, you use a grid, and you usually give yourself a grid so that you can fix problems. That's usually where I see it come into play. Is in the beginning it helps me plan, but then also at the end it helps me revise and make something look a little better. All right, next let's try another little grid and see what else we can talk about. A more sophisticated grid is something that can be done on a diagonal plane. This is typically done for, action, to create something a little more dynamic. Grids, typical straight, square, rule of thirds, or normal grid patterns, they tend to make things look very settled and organized and structured. These diagonal grids, they tend to create something more interesting, more powerful, more dynamic. So let's see if we can apply that to one of our other posters. Let's try it on the Vancouver poster. I really like the perspective on this design. Now, while this totem pole is not directly aligned to the diagonal grid, you do get a sense how this fits in perspective, how you have this part of the totem pole resting, the arm kind of resting on that diagonal line, and then you see the tilt as we go back. It's kind of like a zigzag through the poster design. Like I said, not exactly, but you can see how it might help you plan where to put things. Also, look at how that Vancouver kind of crests right at the apex of that intersection of those diagonal lines. And then look at the bottom of the poster, how those little lines on the edge of the word Canada kind of line up with that diagonal line. So in some ways, those diagonal lines help inform the alignment of things. And they keep things kind of solid and create a nice empty space. I mean, look at how the corners up here pretty much line up with the diagonal lines. Now, you don't have to just use one grid as you plan and design a poster. It may not always be the same. Look at how this works with the rule of thirds. In a similar way, you give yourself kind of a third and two-third area. Bottom third is kind of light. Top two-thirds is the picture area, and it has kind of that frame and box. This totem pole rests on the left-hand side. Fits in there like a little picture window. Another more sophisticated grid, which I don't see a lot in poster design, but does pop up a lot in fine art and painting, would be the golden ratio. And this is also built on a diagonal system. This is a very simplified version. There are more complicated versions you might have seen, the cornucopia or other layout designs. This one is built on a perpendicular diagonal line. Let's see how that aligns to one of these posters. That almost exactly lines up with the wings on that totem pole. And look at that beak. I love that. I just love seeing things like that come together. Let's see what happens with this last poster. Now, it's obvious this poster was not designed using that golden ratio, but it does show you where your eye moves within a frame. These little intersections are logical focal points. They're areas where your eye looks. And if there's something there, it might stay there for a little while. Let's see what happens with the rule of thirds. This one very definitely fits into the rule of thirds category. Look at how that top line, the distance there along the background island, and then the beach line here. Look at how everything just kind of fits in that spot. There's an area. It's kind of like subdividing your picture into foreground, background, and midground. The bottom quadrant of this poster is kind of your foreground, what's close to you. The center quadrant is kind of that mid area, that far away ocean, and then the far distance, the background, is the top grid. And then look at how the palm trees and characters and everything kind of align to those spaces. That makes a very logical layout. I do see a little diagonal line here. Let's see how that looks. I see an interesting positioning here of the paddleboard and the sailboat, how they kind of align to this diagonal grid. Also the birds do as well. So for those in my class, I'm going to provide for you some template pages that have these grids in them so you can download them and use them. If not, I think that a very important step in the design process is to first, gather your materials, sketch and plan out your idea, and then even if you're using pencil and paper, sketch out, use a ruler, sketch out some grids, and try out a system that helps you create alignment, hierarchy, a focal point, and even a dynamic motion through your poster or your design by aligning a grid. I find that this is one of the quickest and easiest and best ways to improve your work is to apply a grid and see what happens. All right? Thanks for listening. See you next time.